because of Star Wars. The cinematographers of the original Star Wars was from Cal Arts. And then a lot of people loved it at the movie school and doing that. And also Rack Super Notebook. And so that's the reason that I come from. Now, all of my people started from Calumet, and then they all migrated to Hoover, or in London. And so all my family moved to a city called Eagle Rock, California. And then my father was in and so I moved here essentially out of marriage, and I'm really glad to be here. Kind of, anybody who's ever listened to old kind of music, there was the Ebenezer Carol, Gordon Michael, those are kind of my people. And so I'm kind of, modern music. And so anyway, with all of those introductions, I can say that I'm really glad to be here. And one of the most promising technologies that are out there on the blockchain. And the Linux Foundation is basically become and so the Linux Foundation is what made the open source movement possible. And so one of the things that everyone in programming, because we talk about programming language, everyone should have is this little Bible. And it should be much more worn out than the one that I have here. But this is essentially the practical guide to compliance, because there are lots of laws that one has to follow when one is developing the blockchain. And so if anybody wants a copy of this, obviously I can send you an email or link you into my Google Drive, but it's imperative that everybody have a copy of this document. The next one is the vision, the Hyperledger vision. And so I have essentially built a smaller PowerPoint presentation that is on this computer, and I basically tried to make this document as simple as possible. And so I want to go over what the Hyperledger vision is, but first of all, what I want to say is that the Hyperledger is a shared database. A Hyperledger is a maintained record. That means that once you put it into the blockchain, it never goes away. And that's a very key point to what is the blockchain. The next one is that it's tamper-proof. You can't go in there and say, well, I did this and this and this, because there is a record. And it has what is called a timestamp. And so the timestamp is something that gives it the authentication. Oh, I don't think I pronounced that correctly. But anyway, this is what gives it its undeniability. That if somebody tries to commit fraud and say that they made this record, that you can basically go back and look at the tree and prove that that isn't, that you were lying. And so that is something that the policy makers are trying to make into law. And so blockchain is going to be very significant in real estate. But right now, what we're talking about is not the crypto coin. What we're talking about is blockchain in business. And so Andrea Karnick is the vice chairman of my not-for-profit, but she's also a financial advisor with Michigan Financial, one of the 10 best places to work in Michigan, as delegated by Detroit Hour. And so I want to talk a little bit about the tax events that happens when you're involved in the token stuff. And so I'm not really wanting to get into the token stuff because the IRS doesn't even really have any guidelines. It's completely unregulated. And what Andrea is involved in is the annuities, which is very regulated. So that's something that I feel in this presentation I at least want to say that if you're involved in the token stuff, it's probably a good idea to put all of your, proceeds into an annuity or something regulated, because you're going to have a tax event And that tax event, you can probably get in trouble, even if it's overseas. So. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry. This is okay. So again, the Hyperledger or the Hyperledger project is an umbrella project of the open source blockchain by the Linux Foundation. A blockchain-based distributed ledger. Now, what is the ledger? The ledger goes back to something, as far as, from my education, it goes back all the way from the Ur of the Chaldeans. If anybody has heard of Abraham of old, one of my studies was the cuneiform writing. And so back in that ancient time, they literally made ledgers on clay, and they dug them up in Iraq, and they deciphered the language. And so the ledger goes back all the way to the dawning of civilization. And so at this hour, what we have is a distributed ledger. And with this distributed ledger, I don't need your permission. And I don't have to worry that you're going to tamper with it. And these are very big keys. Oops. Of course, I just did that.
Just use the arrow key to go back there.
The arrow key?
Yeah, you see the up, down, left, right arrow?
You need a clicker.
I actually don't.
Bottom right of the keyboard.
You like clicker?
What?
Clicker. To move forward.
Hold on.
Hmm? I have one.
So that means it's recording, right?
This is
Yeah.
the key also.
It's recording, right?
That's what it was.
This is for the pause,
Yeah.
but it is recording. Right.
Oh, perfect. That's even better.
I think
That's
so.
even better.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you can
Press the
stand
button.
this side and.
Yeah, sure.
Press the button
Sure.
again. Right.
And so here I've downloaded a copy of a ledger from Google Images to just basically bring into the idea that this is a blockchain for business. And everybody probably has seen the ledger. And so what I don't need is a third party to protect or make positive that I didn't double deal. And that's very key. For instance, with real estate, blockchain already is involved in real estate in South Africa and in Australia. And so another really nifty thing about the blockchain is that it's encrypted. And that means that you're able to protect sensitive information from getting into the wrong hands,
It's recording.
or being misused, or being forged. Now, this is the computer networks that we all know from the late 80s. I personally had a 286 laptop, and I was working with my father, who had a private investigation firm, and we basically had a subsidiary and a group of men that were consulting for the right to know laws. And so we brought the city of Anacortes into compliance with OSHA, and we used these 286 laptops to essentially build databases. They were brown bag databases, and this is before Bill Gates, this is before all of these, and I actually worked with WordPerfect. What? Oh. Sorry.
Ironically, the 86 was around in 1986.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was kind of my introduction. Well, not only that, but in high school I did coding as well at William S. Hart High. We were number 10 in the nation as a high school, academically, at least in 1981. But anyway, so this is what the whole Bill Gates, it's the centralized network where I build my ordered stack, and I have my servers, and I put all of my workstations, and I connect them with all my servers. Now what we have is a decentralized. And that is what the blockchain operates from. Bitcoin is not a blockchain, but Bitcoin operates off of the blockchain, off of the decentralized computer network. And so that's the difference. It's a token technology that's essentially operating from this with a distributed, with distribution. And what makes it possible, one of the components, is the timestamp. So the timestamp is going this way, clockwise, and it's going counterclockwise. And in those, each time there's a connection, you have a very distinct time with both of them. And so that is how that's how it has its authenticity, or its. Okay. I'm a little nervous, so. And so I just briefly wanted to speak about the fabric and the architecture. It's basically with membership. I am the Hyperledger organizer. I am not a member at this point in time of Hyperledger. But the Linux Foundation has given me the designation as organizer. So I'm at the beginning, and then of course, you know, at the end of business, this document will be much more tattered. Yes.
Brett, to everybody in this room, you are the guru expert, so don't be intimidated.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
So-
That strengthens my hand.
You said you're not a member, but an organizer. Can you be a little bit more illustrative?
Okay, so
What's the
becoming a
difference?
member is something that is a process. And so I am at the beginning of that process.
Ah,
You see? They don't I'm gonna have to, you know, get my ordered stack. I'm gonna have to basically go and get my, you know, get the, you know, my $20,000 AI computer from NVIDIA, all of the things that are gonna have to go on, right? I'm gonna have to, you know, make sure that I'm in compliance. I'm gonna have consultants and so all of these things. And so, but I have been authorized by the Linux Foundation to teach and to be in these forums. And so this is my first one, and so I'm really excited to be actually doing this.
You're doing great.
Okay, thank you. And so the blockchain service is a consensus manager and a distributed ledger. Then it has the storage ledger, and it also has the peer-to-peer network. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Skype used to be on the distributed ledger, and Bill Gates took that off. He's a very bad man, but anyway.
you're preaching to the choir.
I know. And so then we have what's the chain code. And the chain code, secure containers, and then the secured registry. And so eventually, also, to answer the question, that you get on GitHub, and there, like I said, there's a whole process. Okay. All right, so why blockchain? Okay, it's an enterprise level solution. It supports different levels of access. So I can control what kind of access you get as a business partner. I can either give you full access, or I can give you a limited access. We also have developers that have the Linux Foundation, which, again, one of the key words in this document is compliance. And so that's the big trick, because I'm basically hacking into, if you will, with the Linux Foundation. How the open source movement is actually possible is that I'm actually able to use everybody's server. And so with that comes the laws, and the Linux Foundation actually has, how to deal with all of the tools and the binary codes and all the problems and rebuilding and the licensing codes. And so that's a big, huge aspect of it. And then we have the cross-chain transactions. Now, the problem with the other blockchain, because I know that there are many of them out there, there's constantly the new hype, and so at this point, I want to briefly speak about the tokens, okay? I personally think that the tokens have a really brilliant technology, but I think that the end user is primarily using them as a casino or as a gambling tool because it goes up and down so high. The problem with that is that you may have put $1,000 into the token, but then it goes up $10,000.
You're talking about things like Bitcoin.
Right, right. See, the token actually operates on the blockchain. It's not the other way around.
So blockchain is more the technology.
That runs.
Tokens are usage or implementations on top of the technology.